Welcome to the Waiting Warriors podcast. As loved ones of first responders and military personnel, we often face life situations and challenges that many others don't experience. And while each of us and our experiences are unique, together we can learn from one another and become stronger in this journey of life. Now let's step out of mediocrity. It's time to thrive. Hi, Waiting Warriors. Welcome to another podcast today. I have a fun guest, Bridget Middleton. She is a Navy spouse of 20 plus years. Her husband just retired a year ago, right? Or just over a year?
Yep, last October.
That's crazy. So you're like on the opposite spectrum of what my husband and I are, because we just started the active duty part. We've been reserves, but we just started active. So it's fun. I'm excited to talk to somebody on the
flip side, huh?
Yeah, the flip side. I was going to say like light at the other end of the tunnel, but that's not quite it. It's not. It's just on the opposite side. So tell us, Bridget, I'm really curious because, well, first tell us about your family.
Okay, so Chris and I have been married 23 years. We met actually when he was in flight school in 1992, December 14th, 1992. So dated, I was in college still, so dated and then got married after he got his wings and moved to Washington State. We have 3 children. We had 3 children in about 5 years because that's what the schedule said we needed to do because he was home, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. They are now, they're young adults. Lindsay is our youngest, and she is a freshman in high school. Our son John is 17. He's a junior in high school. And then we have a college daughter, Mary Catherine, who is a freshman at the University of Mississippi, or Ole Miss, as it's known, affectionately known, who's actually starting her naval career in Navy ROTC at Ole Miss. So she's a freshman and finishing up her first semester. So, so we live in Pensacola, Florida, which is funny because that's where we met, and it's where our last duty station was, and decided to stay and retire here because we love it.
Yeah. So you're in the warm. I've got all this cold rain and sleet, and you're going over.
Yes.
I'm jealous.
Yes, we did do our fair share of time in the cold in the Pacific Northwest. Trust me, 14 out of his 25 plus years in the Navy were spent in Washington State. So I got tired of the cold. That's what Chris tells people. He retired in Pensacola because I got sick of the cold. And I grew up in Louisiana, so it makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah.
Why not? If you can, go to the beach.
Yes.
So I'm curious, with 20 years, like over 20 years of experience as a Navy spouse, and by the sound of it, you've come on top from what we've talked about. Like, you have a strong marriage, you're close with your kids, you have a strong family. Does it make you nervous, though, having your daughter in ROTC committing to a similar life?
In her case, it doesn't. It makes sense to me. It has always been something we kind of thought she was moving toward, whether she knew it or not. I think because we moved so much during her young life, it just made sense, I think, for her to want that for her future. You know, she's very resilient. And so as far as the lifestyle, I'm not really concerned about her and how she's going to adjust to that. Of course, as a mom, when your kid is going into a career, like, you know, it can be dangerous. She will be deploying in her career. You know, if she sticks with ROTC and gets commissioned after graduation. Sure. I mean, as a mom, that will be probably more nerve-wracking than it was for when Dad was away and deployed and flying. And but I mean, that's just the nature of being a mom, I think, right? I mean, yeah, you kind of worry more about your kids than you do about your husband. I think most people do.
Isn't that so interesting, though? Because it's like, you love your spouse dearly, but I don't know, because I was thinking about it ever since we emailed, and it's just like, why is that? And I was thinking, well, maybe it's because, like, I see my husband as this strong, capable
Right.
adult. And I think it's probably hard. I mean, my oldest is 5.
Right. You picture
I
your
can't even
kids
imagine
as
picturing
the,
her being
yeah. I mean, the first time
capable.
I
But
saw her in camouflage and in combat boots, right, it was just a few weeks ago, and it was
yeah,
just kind of jarring, like, oh, okay, this is
right,
what you're doing, you know? It makes it very real because you picture them in their kindergarten picture.
right.
You don't picture them doing adult things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, am I nervous for no, I mean, she's extremely capable. She's
Hmm.
so smart and she's very mature, and she's going to do great things in the world. So I'm not worried about that. But of course, yeah, I mean, I'm sure
Hmm.
I'll worry. I'm not really a worrier though. I will put that out there.
Yeah.
My mom accused me a lot, I think, in my young adult life of, you don't worry enough, you're just very trusting. And I'm like, I don't. And I don't know why that is. I'm just sort of carefree when it comes to life in general. I don't like to waste time worrying about things because it's a waste of time. I mean, what's
Yeah.
going to happen is going to happen. And, I try to make the right decisions, and you walk down the right path, and hopefully good things will happen. Bad things will happen, of course, but I don't try not to worry about it. So
Right.
anyway,
I'm
yeah,
sure that attitude helped a lot as a military spouse, though.
yes, yes, for sure. And and I encountered lots of spouses that were very much worriers. They were worrywarts, and it's hard when you're not that type of person. You don't have that type
Mm-hmm.
of personality. To be surrounded by people who are like that is not really good. I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of brings you down. So, and we talked about this in our emails. So I would just always try to surround myself with positive people, or
Mm-hmm.
people that were like-minded. And that wasn't, it didn't always mean that it was the other spouses in our squadron, or I had to kind of look outside of that group,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes too. So you just got to find your people.
So how did you find those positive groups of women? Like you're saying they weren't in your squad, they weren't always in your
Well,
squadron.
most of the time they were in my squadron. So
Mm-hmm.
let me kind of back up. So I was 22 years old, barely, when Chris and I got married. So my entire adult life up until, and I'm going to be 46 on Monday. So my entire adult life was spent, basically as part of my husband's Navy career. So
Mm-hmm.
in the Navy, so to speak. Um, and so when we got married and I moved over 2,000 miles away from my home state where I had lived, my entire life, never moved. Um, I moved to Oak Harbor, Washington, which is on Whidbey Island, which is 2.5 hours north of Seattle. So
Mm.
it's very secluded. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to take a ferry or very small 2-lane bridge to get onto the island. And it's a very small town, but it was a very, very close knit community. And it was a very Navy centric community. So that was very fortunate, I think, because my first experience in the Navy, or as a Navy spouse before we had children, was with this group of women who, and it was all women at the time. There
Mm-hmm.
are other, we've men in this squad. We have husbands and boyfriends and girlfriends and everything in this
Mm-hmm.
the family clubs now. But at the time, it was a group of women, and it was a very close knit group. And I was extremely fortunate to have a commanding officer's wife who cared so much about how we were
Mm-hmm.
doing when our husbands were away. And her name was Donna Phelan. I'm going to give her a shout out because
Mm-hmm.
she's amazing. And she was the reason why I fell in love with being a Navy spouse, because she made that very first group of women was so fun. I mean, the deployment was 6 months long, the very first deployment. And Chris left from our honeymoon for 2 months. So like we came from our
Yeah.
honeymoon, I dropped him off at an airplane and he left for 2 months. So, I moved to my first duty station with him alone from Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
He handed me the key to the house and said, I'll see you in 2 months. So it was, yeah. So it was like trial by fire, right? So,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, I was fortunate. I at the time, the Navy Spouse Club, or Navy Wives Clubs, they were called, the Squadron
Mm-hmm.
Wives Clubs, were very well attended and
Mm-hmm.
popular at the time, and very close knit. And we
Mm-hmm.
were always together. And I knew that I could call my CO's wife anytime if I needed something, and she would be there. So, and we took care of each other. Now, as time moved on and the internet got, I'm kind of dating myself now. So once people, started developing relationships through social media and they could just email each other, or people had cell phones, then, communication and things like that. Like, we went to the Spouses Club to get information about how our husbands are doing and what the schedule was. And you went to those meetings to get all that information. And it's not like that anymore. So I think there's less of that going on. And as we went through the years, there was less of those tight knit groups. So I had to find other ways. And because we had lived in Oak Harbor so many times throughout his career, every time we'd come back, I started developing friendships with locals who were not in the military, who were like me, or, who were more like-minded and positive, and I knew I could count on, and, and they knew they could count on me too. It wasn't just a one-way street, but, and a lot of those people I would find through church or through the gym, or because, fitness was a big outlet for me that when my husband would be gone. So yeah, I mean, just, it was a small town, so there weren't a lot of options I mean, but for the most part, the military spouse groups were how I found my quote unquote instant friends, as we like to call it, every time we moved. But yeah, you do have to sometimes reach outside of those groups to find people like you.
Right. I think it's interesting because, like, I hadn't thought of that before, that because here at Fort Campbell, they're really good at providing different groups for people to attend. But I've noticed, and I've only been here 2 months, but they're like trying to urge, especially the younger wives, like, come to these events, and these younger wives are having a harder time seeing the value. But it's interesting that before, the value was inherent because that's where you heard about your spouse or whatever, and the added benefit that you maybe weren't thinking about is the community. And now I think, I don't know, it takes more, like, you have to go get the community and that be what you're going for now, because you get all the information. But yeah, I think those groups are priceless.
Yeah, and to, no matter how many friends you have who are not Navy spouses, who may be there for you and may, take you out to dinner when you're feeling low, or come over and keep you company. The only people that are going to understand what you're going through are the other spouses that are going through it too.
Yeah.
So your friends who are not military or first responder spouses, who are going through what you're going through, they'll be empathetic and they'll be helpful and all that stuff, but they'll still be a little bit, I think, inkling of, they just don't quite get it. And they also might not understand, why are you putting yourself through this? Isn't this a choice? Isn't this voluntary? Yeah, it's voluntary. So, and I think that's really important too, to for your frame of mind when you're in the middle of a deployment and, you've got 3 kids with the flu and your car broke down and your refrigerator's leaking, and to try, right?
I've had that summer.
Yeah, because it's Murphy's Law. Whatever will go wrong, will go wrong. So, it's important to try to take a step back and go, okay, this is not about me. The reason we are doing this is because in my case, my husband feels a duty to his country, and he's doing this, and it's for a bigger, it's bigger than me. It's a bigger cause, right? It's not about me, and to understand your role in supporting his role in doing this mission that he's doing was so comforting to me at so many times, that, I mean, I have this picture, that on one of my husband's last deployments, one of the public affairs officers took of him, and he's in his flight gear, and it's on the aircraft carrier, and he's in his flight gear, his helmet's on, he's carrying his bag, and he's walking out to get into a jet to go fly a combat mission. And they snapped this picture of him, and his head's kind of down, and and it's the back of him. And I got sent the picture. I think it might have been on the the aircraft carrier's website during deployment or something, and I found it, and I was like, that's my husband. It was really cool. And I was able to get a copy of the picture. And for his retirement, I had a really good friend of ours that actually was a family that we were friends with when we were dating here in Pensacola. And she's a grown woman now with a family, a husband and 3 children, and she's an artist, and she's an incredible artist, Sarah Webb. And I commissioned a painting from this picture, and it hangs in our dining room now. And when I was explaining to her why I wanted the picture painted, I said, I would look at this picture and go, this is why we're doing what we're doing at home, because he has to go do this. And there's not a lot of, he's not joyous in the picture. He's not excited to be going and doing this really hard job, but he's determined, right? He's like, I don't know, I'm like, who knows what he's thinking? Is he praying on his way to the jet? Like, whatever. But it was like that picture that I just sort of held on to, and I would look at it when I was like going, why are we doing this again? But we also always said, this is right for us at this time. And as long as we keep thriving in this lifestyle and our children keep thriving in this lifestyle, we're going to keep doing it. And then we'll know when it's time to stop doing it. And and when we got here and our children were teenagers and they started high school, and it was going to be if we were going to move again, it was going to be not just one more move, it was going to be 2 or 3 more moves while our kids were in high school. And we just looked at each other and we were like, we're done. Like, this is it. So there's always that you have to balance, right? So we have this duty to our country that we want to fulfill, that we are very passionate about. And as a family, we support my husband's passion to do that. But then again, as a father also and a mother, we have to take care of our family too. So, you have to just kind of balance that out and go, when is it time to put the family first and not the duty first? And so in the end, that's what brought us to Pensacola and kept us here. And he ended up retiring. So.
When I like what you said, that as long as the family was thriving. So it sounds like you guys had the goal of to not just get through it, but to, not just be in survival mode the whole time, which I'm sure there were time periods where you were in survival
Oh, sure.
mode.
Yeah.
But overall, like, the goal was to still thrive.
Oh, yeah. No, I have a very basic rule about life that if I'm not having fun, then I'm not going to do that anymore. So, and not just fun, but if it's something that we're doing that isn't worthwhile, that's not giving us joy, then why are we doing it? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like I said, I wrote down some notes about just, we've always had very open minds about where we're going to move to, and and I think you have to do that. I think you just have to be like, okay, we're very, very open to whatever and all these adventures and experiences that we're going to have. If we go into it with that kind of attitude, like, this is an adventure. And we always did with our kids when we would tell them, okay, we're moving again. And sometimes it was after only a year or a year and a half in one place. Like, well, guess what? We're moving again. Well, where to? Well, Hawaii. Or whatever. And it's going to be a great adventure, and it's going to be fun. And I don't know how long we're going to be there, and I don't know where we're going to live and whatever, but we're going to do this together. And so basically what happened is our oldest daughter, which is funny because she's sort of one of the reasons why not the main reason, but we watched her go to 3 different schools in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And that was very difficult for her. And then in 8th grade, we moved to Pensacola, and she started another school. And she finally got to the point where she was super happy. And it took a while. It was a rough transition for her. Of course, it would have been for any kid, but she finally got happy and found her people, and made the soccer team and just all this stuff. And then there was an opportunity for us to guess, hey, congratulations, you've been selected for whatever, and it's time to move again. And we were like, wait, what? I don't think this is the path we need to go down anymore, because we gotta throw the life ring to the kids and just take care of them now, because they've been they've been on this train their whole lives. They didn't know any different. So it has been really funny though, like finally being in one place for for longer than about 3 years. We're going on 5 years in the spring that we've been in Pensacola now, and it's so weird. It's so bizarre not to
Do,
be
do you
house
feel like you
hunting.
should? I was gonna say, do you feel like you
Yeah,
should just be moving and
I do. I
redecorating
get on
anywhere?
Zillow and I'm like, we have had 3 houses in Pensacola though, which is kind of funny. Not by choice, but we couldn't get base housing when we moved here, so we rented a place, lived there for about a year or so, and then moved on base. And then when he retired, we bought a house. So we're on address number 3 in Pensacola, but we'll be here for a while. Don't worry. So
That's
you can
funny.
write this address in pen, not pencil. I tell all my friends for Christmas card's sake. I should put that on my Christmas card, actually.
That's
So
a good one.
yeah.
That's funny because we just had family ask for addresses and all that kind of stuff, and um, like every Christmas we have been at a different address for the last 6 years of our 6 years of marriage. And,
Wow.
and I was like, you can keep this address for at least one more Christmas. No, we're gonna be here.
But a lot of people don't get it. But
Yeah,
if you know, you know.
yep,
If you know, you know.
yep.
So, and that goes back to the idea of only the people that are going through what you're going through
Mm-hmm.
get it. No, they're the only people that understand. So,
Yeah.
and even our families who love us so hard and would do anything for us. I mean, gosh, my parents would hop on a plane and fly to wherever we were a couple times a year, and it's funny because I have 2 much younger half sisters, and my youngest sister is 20 years younger than me, so she's 26, I guess now.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to visit us in Pensacola, and lo and behold, met a Navy pilot and got married to him. And she is now basically reliving my whole life. So
Yeah.
they live in Virginia Beach. She's having a baby. He's going to be leaving probably a couple weeks after the baby comes. It's all happening over again. It's really funny. I tell her all the time, it's like watching a movie of my life happening,
Yeah.
like in real life. But
That's funny.
but yeah, so it's great. We loved every single bit of our Navy life.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. It was great until it was time to leave, and we knew it was time to leave. That's the
Right.
important thing, to know when it's sort of time to hang it up and put some roots down. And for us, it was a family decision. It was
Mm-hmm.
because we need to take care of our kids. We don't want to mess them up. We
Right.
want them to make it through high school, going to the same high school with all the same kids for 4 years, and that
Mm-hmm.
was just on our priority list. It kind of always was. So
Yeah. When I I like what you're saying though, because you did those few moves where your daughter was struggling, and you guys kind of pushed towards that. So it's not like no one can say you gave up or anything like that. And it's like you just realized over time that that was what your family needed. So I like that it was a thoughtful consideration. I do have.
yeah, and I mean, and by no means we moved like 9 times
Yeah.
in 20. It was 9 times, yeah,
Yeah.
and in 25 years, and we were lucky because the plane that he flew was stationed basically at this one base in on
Mhm.
Whidbey Island. So even when we did leave Whidbey, we always went back after a year or
Yeah.
2 years or whatever. We always went back there when he would go back on sea duty, or flying when he'd be in a flying status where he'd be flying the jet again.
Mhm.
So we had a house there that we bought when we were first married, and we always went back to the same house. So we had a lot of stability as far as that was concerned, because
Mhm.
we knew we had the same neighborhood to go back to, and our neighborhood was a lot of retirees. So it was, we were sort of the kids that would come and go, but so they were always there, sort of waiting for us when we got back, which was comforting and nice. So we did have some stability, even though we were
Mhm.
in and out a lot. But we lived some pretty cool places, and we made the best of it when we were there. And yeah, I mean, sure, it was rough sometimes with 3 kids, ages 6 and under,
Mhm.
and workups and deployments and all that stuff. And so there were lots of times when it wasn't easy, and that's when there are times where you just need to ask for help, and I think that's really important too. I think that's one of the keys to being successful, like not being an island, and knowing that there are people, when someone offers to watch your kids so you can go get your hair done, or just go to the library and read books for for an afternoon, or do whatever it is that makes you happy, whatever it is that it re-energizes you or recharges your batteries. For me, it was exercise. So when I had a friend that would say, hey, I'll come watch your kids so you can go for a run, I'd be like, okay. What time are you coming over? Can you come now? So you have, but so to understand and to not be so proud to not ask for help. I always ask for help. I'm not ashamed of that at all. I ask a lot of questions of my husband. I think that's important too. Like, knowledge is power when it comes to these situations. And fortunately, my husband loves to talk. Chris is a big talker. Anybody that knows him knows that. So he was always real happy to share as much information as he could, of course. Right. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that he couldn't tell me, but just knowing how it all works. And again, like from the very beginning, he was always very transparent with me about, hey, even when we were dating, like, if we're going to be together long term, you need to understand that this is what life in the Navy looks like. Like, I'll be gone for 6 months at a time. He was gone for our first 3 years of marriage. He was gone over half of those first 3 years. So, so you understand. See, yeah, you shaking your head. Yeah. So, but he was very good at explaining all that to me on the front end before I said yes to his proposal. You know what I mean? Like, I knew what my life was going to be like. I mean, I kind of knew. I mean, right. You're never fully prepared for all the stuff that's going to happen. But so, the spouses that would really struggle were the ones that didn't have the information, that just really went into that lifestyle really clueless about, my husband's on a ship. What? For how long? They were the ones that really had a hard time. And so I think that the service member has a responsibility to sort of prepare their families too. And fortunately, the service, like the Army and all of the military services, are very good at, I think they are very good now at, briefs and information and family groups where you get so much support. I mean, the bases have so much of a support system, and I think you need to really use those tools that are available to you, like, and not be ashamed about asking for help. And take your friends up when they want to babysit your kids, or take them up on it. Or your parents, if your parents want you to come home for, I would go home when the kids were little, before they were in school. I would pack them up and drive cross country, and and with the dog and the goldfish and a big gulp cup. That's not a joke. The goldfish lived in a big gulp cup in the cup holder on a cross country trip. We did it. It survived, if you can believe that. It was pretty funny. But yeah, and I would drive my kids to my parents, and we'd spend, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it took to kind of get my head back on straight. And then we'd go back, and, and so I give my sister that advice as a new Navy spouse. And I think she's taking it. She seems to be, finding a really solid group of friends and people, and they all kind of take care of each other, which is nice. But I also told her, now listen, don't go home to mom for like the entire 6 months of the deployment, because you really need to be part of your squadron and a part of that thing, because you're going to miss so much fun if you do that. And you want those relationships that you establish during those times are so important. I mean, some of my best friends still to this day were, the women that, when our kids were little and our husbands were deployed, we're like, well, I guess we're just going to spend the whole weekend together and have like a giant sleepover, because we need each other, and, we're just going to hang out, and we clean each other's houses, and we, take care of each other's kids. And I mean, we even had at one point, the ladies in my neighborhood had a babysitting co-op where we would trade hours of babysitting, and we kind of tracked it. So nobody got the brunt of the bad end of the deal. But, and my friend Amy and a bunch of other girls in the neighborhood, some were Navy spouses, some were not, but, we had a babysitting co-op for a while, and that was so helpful, when the kids were little and the guys were gone. And, but yeah, I mean, now to this day, like our very best friends are still our Chris's pilot from when they were on their, like second deployment together, and they flew all these combat missions together. And his wife is to this day one of my very best friends, and we travel with them. And so you just form these super tight bonds, and in those times, those sort of trying times, and that's important too. So kind of going into running home to your parents, or whoever, whatever it is that you're doing to try to make your life easier. Don't be afraid to kind of face it independently, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And because you get a lot back from that. I think you become stronger, when you go through those things. I think you become a much stronger person overall throughout your life, and find really great friends. I'm babbling now. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. One question you mentioned a few times that you guys you especially had a very positive outlet. But how did you keep that positive outlook? Because I feel like it'd be really, really easy to lose that when you're in either military or first responder wives, just because of what our loved ones are doing. It's not awesome hours or deployments, or just the stress of they are in danger or whatever. So how did you keep that positive outlook?
I think that my faith played a huge role in that. I think that was a very comforting thing for me to sort of have that trust that, faith, I guess, is the best part of that answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just like I said, staying busy. I think trying not to overthink it, trying not to overthink what could be happening, what could be going wrong. I think if you get bogged down in those details about what they're doing day to day when they're gone, I think that's very, very overwhelming. And so it's not to say that I had a positive outlook every single day, of every single deployment. I mean, everybody has their bad days, but for me, staying busy and staying engaged with a group of friends that, and we did a lot. I was never home. I mean, the house was empty, even before kids. I found that, of course, we lived in a beautiful place where there was so much to do, and I love the outdoors, so that was helpful too. But, we would go just, hey, we're doing a girls' weekend and we're going skiing, and this is what we're doing. And we're not going to sit around moping and waiting for the phone to ring, or waiting for that email to come through. And I will say, on our very first deployment, probably in the second deployment, there was no email at all. So, and no telephone. I mean, there were occasional satellite telephone calls, but for the most part, there was no email. So there's very little communication. So what he and I did for our first probably 2 or 3 deployments before we had a reliable email system between the ship and home, we wrote letters to each other every single day on paper, and we would date the backs of them so that if they came out of order, which they always came out of order. So that was helpful to me. I looked forward to having that letter to read every single day. So that was helpful. I think fitness, I think staying healthy, physically healthy, was a good distraction for me, but also was good for my mental health. So staying fit and going to the gym, and typically people that are at the gym are pretty positive people who are, into living good, healthy lives. So that was good too. I started running, and I was not an athlete growing up. Not until I was an adult did I discover that I loved to be fit and exercise, and I liked to sweat. I was a dancer and I played piano, and I wasn't into sports, but I am now. But yeah, I think staying on that track all contributed to me having a positive attitude and not letting the naysayers get me down,
Yeah.
I mean, you learn kind of over time. And at first, everybody makes mistakes, and I'm a very open and welcoming kind of personality. And so I would make these friends and then kind of realize, oh, that's not really the kind of friend I want. They're
Yeah.
always bashing the Navy or bashing the squadron, or, not happy with how things are going. And that really rubs off on you. And I think you get better over time at learning, okay, hey, it's very nice to meet you, but, that person might not be your people. You got to
Yeah.
find your people and find the people that are going to have a positive influence on your life too. So, yeah. So,
I like
and
that.
also, and margaritas helped actually as well. Margaritas are super helpful, in case you're wondering. And that goes all the way back to that very first spouses club that I was in. So that's very helpful.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Last question.
Okay.
What is your key to thriving, or any last advice that you want to share with your fellow waiting warriors?
I mean, gosh, I think we covered a lot of it, but I think being open-minded and treating the whole lifestyle like it's an adventure. It's not forever. It's not going to be your
Mm-hmm.
whole life. You're not going to be moving around your whole life. Sort of understanding that it's just a time in your life. It's going to be a time in your life that you'll look back on someday and go, wow, that was really cool that we did that, and it was an adventure. Yeah. But also communicating with each other, talking to each other about what's bothering you, what you don't understand about what's going on. And again, they might not be able to tell you everything, but I think if you don't ask the question, you're not going to get any answer. So even if you get a partial answer or something that helps you, I think communicating in any relationship, not just with your spouse, just with your friends and with the people you work with, just having open lines of communication. And Chris and he would call from the ship. Of course, when he was the CO, he had a phone in his room, so that was nice. So we would get to talk more often. Yeah. But we would start every conversation off with, in case we get cut off, I love you. I love you too. Okay, great. Okay, now what? Okay, let me ask you all the questions about the bills that I need to ask you first. So we would get all that stuff out of the way in case we got cut off. But I mean, the communication piece is just, I mean, even when they're home every day, it's important. He's home now, it's weird. He's home every day.
He's like, sweetie, can you go to the other room?
Well, he does. He's actually been traveling
from the other room.
I know. And it's funny because it's an adjustment too on this end, on the, like you said, on the backside of the career, the military career, whatever. It's still it's still an adjustment. I mean, any relationship you're in is going to take work, and if you're not working at a relationship, if you're not cultivating a relationship, then it's like a plant, it's dying. It's if you're not fertilizing it and watering it and trying to make it better every day, then it's either not going to grow or it's going to die. So, just trying to when they are home, making the best of those times when they are home, and taking time, just the two of you, leave the kids home and go on a weekend trip. We still do that now. Our kids are teenagers now, so it's a lot easier. Yeah. But I mean, at least once a year, we'll do a trip, just us, or, and we'll go on date nights and we'll do that stuff. But those things are so important. If you don't have that really strong relationship, it's going to make being separated so much harder. So you really have to work on that. Just be a friend. Don't always assume the worst, and assume that your spouse always has your best interest at heart. They love you the most, and that's if you just keep telling yourself that he's not doing this because he's out to get me, or always assume the best, right? Always assume that they have your best interest at heart instead of assuming the opposite. And communicate's the key. And make good friends.
Yep.
And take care of yourself. Oh my gosh, take care of yourself. That's so important, mentally and physically, right?
Well, because they feed into each other, that's for sure.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. I feel I was going to say well fed, but that's like a very churchy thing to
No,
say,
I
but
like it.
whatever.
That's okay. We can be churchy. I'm
We can be
churchy.
churchy, yeah. My husband's a chaplain, guys.
Oh, is
It's
he?
just part of
See, I
our,
didn't even know that about you. That's
yeah,
cool. That's
yeah,
awesome. I had no idea.
yeah.
We
So,
just met, y'all, by the way, in
yeah.
case you're wondering.
But yeah, thank you so much. I feel like I'm well fed. That's like the best description. So thank you so much for sharing
You're welcome. It was
wisdom
my
and advice.
pleasure.
Hey everyone, I have a favor to ask. If you have enjoyed this podcast, can you leave a review and subscribe? I promise it just takes a second and that will help more people find this podcast. Also, I'd love for you to join us in our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/thewaitingwarrior, click groups, and then The Waiting Warriors. Until next time, have an awesome day.